Hey everyone. If you haven't already, if you could sign in with the Big Ugly ASME SAO link, the QR code, and then also fill out the survey. While you're doing that, I would like to say that we coming up in the same room that we're in right now, but on March 22nd. No, but I'll take it. On March 22nd, we are going to have a very special guest here. We are going to have Dan Banak, I guess. Is that how you say his name?
That sounds right.
Sounds right? All right. Something like that. He is kind of like the Autodesk Fusion king, basically. He kind of like basically wrote the whole Autodesk book. So he knows a lot about what he's doing, and he's going to be coming in here for CAD training. And he's going to be going through generative design, which is a very cool part of Fusion that we haven't touched on yet. So tell your friends. It's going to be here, but it's going to be 2 hours instead of 1 hour. So it'll be 6:30 to 8:30 instead of 7:30. You guys are welcome to, if you need to dip before then, that's fine. But it will be for 2 hours in this room. It's going to be a blast. Yeah.
There's also going to be a Zoom link, right?
Yeah, there will also be a Zoom link that if you can't come in person, you can stream it. But if you want it to come in person, it'll be really cool. Again, just our quick Q&A. You should bring your laptop. You should bring a mouse. If you can't make a session, we do post everything after each meeting. Link to the YouTube videos of each lesson. Yeah. So this week is concluding our kind of like our specialty tool training pretty much, and our design parts. You should all kind of start to be thinking about your personal project ideas for what you guys want to be working on for the rest of the time. So basically, if you didn't already know, right now we're working on these like design parts where we're providing with you guys with these sketch designs, and from the sketch designs, you're trying your best to recreate the parts that we've already made for you. But then the following weeks, instead of doing something like that, you'll be going off on your own, and from your own brains or whatever it is, you'll make your own parts, your own designs, and then if you want, you can even 3D print them. And in fact, we actually highly recommend that you make something that we can 3D print, and so we can kind of show it off. Yeah. Okay, so Fusion. All right, so we're gonna talk a little bit more about the mirror tool today. We've kind of gone over parts of it in different lessons, but we're just gonna kind of quickly go through mirroring both sketches and objects. So if you want to just create a sketch in the top left, pick a plane, any plane. And for this purpose, you can sketch any kind of funky shape that you want, as long as you have a line that you will mirror with. So I'm going to just start with my mirror line right now and draw it straight down the middle, and then just hop off of it. So this is just a line here that I'm going to use for mirroring my sketch. So, yeah, so now you can just kind of make a shape looking thing. And again, like we talked about the last time we talked about mirror, you don't actually have to create a like a full selectable plane for mirroring, which I will not be doing, as you'll see in a second. But again, you can just kind of make your own shapes. You don't actually have to follow along with what I'm doing. But yeah, so right now you'll notice that this isn't blue here because this is not a completed plane, and that's okay. But you'll navigate to the Create menu, down to Mirror, which is the two triangles next to each other. First, you'll select all the objects that you want to mirror. So I'll just select every single line that I just drew. And you'll notice I'm not going to select this middle line here because you cannot mirror a line that you're trying to mirror with, if that makes sense. So next I'm going to click on the mirror line. And now I will select that last line that I left unselected. And you'll see once I select that, it will, in black, kind of propagate the other half of my shape. So I'm satisfied, so I will hit OK. And you'll notice that there's all of these sketch constraints on the edges at different points and on the different lines. And most of that is because, if you'll notice, there's a whole lot of sketch constraints on this middle line here. And that's because this middle line is creating symmetry. So if I were to try to grab one of these points on one of the sides here, and I were to pull it or move it, it will affect both sides of the drawing symmetrically. If you were to, let's say, want to make edits to this that you didn't want to make symmetric, the simplest thing to do would be to delete this middle line here. So you can just select that and hit the delete key on your keyboard, or you can left click on it, but I just hit delete. And you'll notice that almost all of those sketch constraints have now gone away. And if I were to grab that one of those points on one side, it will only affect one side of that sketch. Cool. Yeah, so I'm just going to hit Finish Sketch to show you the next part. I'm going to extrude this body that I've just, or this plane that I've just made out a certain distance. Doesn't really matter. So now I have this form, this body here. So the mirror tool exists in both the sketching create tab and as well as in the solids create tab. So if I go down into my create and I scroll all the way down, you'll see that the mirror tool exists here as well. It looks exactly the same as it did before. But now you'll notice in the type, when I click on mirror, this little window pops up, and under type you have different options. You can mirror a face, you can mirror a body, and you can mirror features and components. So a face is pretty self-explanatory. If I wanted to mirror a face, I can select a face, select a plane, and then basically that plane, that shape, will then mirror across that mirror plane that I've just selected. I can select body, which will do the same thing, but instead of taking over one face, I will bring the entire body over the plane. Feature is a really interesting one. If I were to, let's say, have already, let's say, something mirrored, and I had an indentation in this body, I can mirror that featured indentation across a plane, and then that feature will then exist on both halves. So that can be really helpful, really useful. We can kind of go over that one in a second too, because it's pretty interesting. But we're going to mirror body. So I'll select this body. And then over to mirror plane, I'm going to select the bottom face of my object, basically. This face right here. And when I do that, you'll notice that automatically, just like on the sketch, it's kind of previewed what the shape will look like once we mirror it. And again, operations, we can either join it or we can have a new body, meaning that if we want, these can either be one single piece or we can make it two separate pieces. But I'll leave it as join for now to keep it one. And I'll just hit OK. Right? So I'm actually going to realize I'm going to undo that a little bit. I'm going to change that. I'm going to go down to the timeline, right click on it, hit edit feature, and I'm going to make that a new body because I want to keep this plane here that I just mirrored with. And you'll see why in a second. But let's go ahead and create sketch on one of these faces of your object. And let's just create a just like a weird shape on one half of it. So once you have a shape that's only on one half of your object, I'm just going to go ahead and extrude this into it. And you'll see that now I have this kind of like this weird feature here. So now we're going to see if we can mirror this feature across this central plane here. So I'm going to hide this body for a second. You can hide bodies by selecting the little eyeball next to them. If you want to hide all your bodies, you can select the eye next to the word bodies, or you can just do them individually. So like I said, I'm going to hide this for a second. I'm going to go back to create, mirror, and I'm going to select my type to be feature. And you'll notice now things are selecting slightly differently, right? Before it was selecting the whole body, and now I can kind of go inside of this cut that I've made. So I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Yeah.
Additionally, you can also do the same thing by just clicking the features in the timeline. So if you ever have done a bunch of things that you want to mirror over, and you can find them all in the timeline below, you can use Shift Select to click a bunch of things and then do the exact same thing.
Instead of like manually selecting everything you want. I'm a big manual guy. And then I'll select the mirror plane. And you'll see that now this kind of feature I can mirror over. You kind of have to be careful with this feature though, because sometimes it might not create the same kind of relationship. So if I have both of these here and I hit OK, you see it gave me a warning. It didn't really like that. No target body. So, again, you have to kind of be careful with how you're mirroring these things, because if it's not, with the feature tab, you have to kind of make sure that it's kind of extruding out, or it can get a little complicated with feature.
I think the reason that one didn't work is because you have two separate bodies, but I think if you had extruded it and used join earlier on, I think it should work. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm just going to delete that. Okay. Let's go back to mirror. Select the mirror plane. Select the feature. Oh, that's not the feature. Select the feature. Then make sure you actually select the mirror plane. And now you have the feature. Lastly, really quick, I do want to go over, just really quick, kind of like what he was saying. I don't know if we've really touched on it much, but the timeline, very important. That's this thing down here. You can kind of grab your cursor and you can drag it to and from different aspects in your timeline. and it will kind of act as if those things that you've done have never existed up until this point. You can also like deactivate specific features in your timeline, and then reactivate them. And the reason I want to do that is because I want to show you something with this sketch. So I'm just going to edit this sketch. I'm going to create this. I've gotten rid of this plane here. So I've basically taken my shape and I've cut it in half, kind of like before we mirrored it. I'm just going to finish sketch. And now I'm going to remind you all about the revolve function, which revolve and mirror are very, very similar. But the main difference is that obviously one of them you just mirror across a plane, and the other one is you revolve across an axis. But both of these functions will create a form for you. So when I select the axis, and you'll be able to create this kind of shape here. And this is just kind of a reminder because in a little bit you'll be going back to working on practice parts, and one of the parts is a chess piece. This kind of looks like a really ugly looking pawn, but basically the chess piece, specifically that one, it only requires two functions on your timeline: a sketch and a revolve. So that's pretty much as simple as you can do it as simple as I can show you how to do it without actually doing it for you. So just kind of a reminder for that. But now, Jordan, if you're ready, you can talk about, he's going to tell you guys about how you can import these things called McMaster parts, which are really helpful, especially for industry type CADing things.
Yeah, so I'm just going to go through and show some of like the more like standardized things, because obviously we don't want to be drawing every single thing when stuff already exists, right? So what you can do is just, if you're in like a new part, do you want me to save the chess piece, or I just get rid of it? And then I'm gonna get rid of that too. And then, so if you go to, if you go to insert, right? You'll notice under insert, you actually have quite a lot of options. For right now, we're only really concerned about the insert McMaster card component section right here. And you'll notice when I click on the insert McMaster card component, this is an external website called McMaster Car. McMaster Car is a company that is a repository for all sorts of different things you might need. And one good thing about them is a lot of, not all, of the things they have CAD models to go with them. So if I was like messing around and let's say I need like, a hand crank or something because I'm spinning something and I don't want to make a whole hand crank, I can just type in a hand crank up here, right? And when I click on it, you'll notice I get a whole bunch of different options for different hand cranks that I could go through, right? So right now we don't really care about what type. We just care about the fact that we don't feel like CADing something that's this detailed. We just kind of want it. So if we click on it, right, and then go to this, you have options on the left-hand side for like how you want to specify things. So if you want to wheel with the handle or without, what size you want your hole diameter to be, your hole shape, your wheel diameter, and so on and so forth. And you can really get very specific with what you need, although if you get too specific, you might not have the exact CAD model you need anymore. So for now, we're just going to scroll down here. You'll notice I get a whole bunch of options again. I'm going to go down here to this one, this iron dish with 2 spokes and a handle. And then you'll notice when I click on it, and I will make this a little bit bigger so it's a little easier to see. You'll notice I get this add to order, how many. And then the more important thing is you'll notice I have CAD at the bottom, and then I have 3D SolidWorks. It's always going to default to 3D SolidWorks when you get here in McMaster. So what we need to do is we need to change that to a Fusion file. Now, there aren't direct Fusion files, because Fusion files are called F3D files, I believe. But we can change it to a step file, and Fusion is also made by the company that makes Inventor, and Inventor uses step files. So we're going to use a step file, right? So we're going to click on it. We're going to say we want a 3D step file. And then since we know we want this one, right, we're going to click download. And then once I click download, the menu is going to go away. And boom, we now have a full modeled hand crank without any effort other than looking it up on McMaster Car. So, you can use this for a lot of different things. You can use it for screws, exactly. So I can go back and I can look at a million different screw sizes. I'm not going to go through and like do all of them because there's like, you could go on forever. But like if I wanted something here, like this, I could get a screw as well. I selected both. Let me move this out of the way. So you get like a fully modeled screw with the modeled thread and a head and, the whole 9 yards. But McMaster-Carr stuff is just very useful if you don't feel like adding stuff that is commercially made and, it already exists and you want to use it. And along the same topic of that, there's also, if you go into a Chrome thing, you can also go to websites like GrabCAD, right? And so GrabCAD is a CAD repository. So if you go to like a CAD repository like GrabCAD, assuming it loads, you can go to the library section, and in the library section, you have a million models of things that people have CADed of different complexity. So if I want, let's say, a F1 car,
F1 car.
let me look up F1 car.
It was right there?
Well, I'm showing more. So you notice whole sorts of models of people CADing stuff. There's,
Yo, that one's sick. Can we get the set?
I'll go back.
Senna McLaren. That one.
Which one?
It was very bottom right. Yeah, that one.
This one?
Yeah.
So when I click on it, you'll notice I get some images of it, right? And then down here, the more important thing is you'll notice, and this works really well for us actually, this is an F3D file, right? So I can view this here, or if I wanted to, I could go back, and click on it again, if it'll let me, and I can download the files, right? And then, so let's just say I'll download it real quick. Let me do this real fast. Oh, well, I'm not gonna be able to sign in on mine. Whatever, I closed it out. But,
We were so close to having
yeah. Go back, let me go back to it real quick. It's not gonna let me go back. Oh, whatever. But the point is, if you sign in with your account, you can download those files, and then you can go to File, Open, and then Open from my computer, and then you can just go to like your downloads, and you can select that file from there and open it. And so you can have other people's stuff that they've uploaded online, and you can download it and use it there. So if you don't have what you want on McMaster-Carr, you can always get it there as well. One other important thing that I'll mention while we're on the topic of being lazy for CAD stuff and, inserting stuff that exists. Obviously, there's other sections you can insert other stuff. But one other cool feature, and I'm going to delete these both real quick so I can show it, is if you go to Utilities, there's actually an add-in section here, right? And in that add-in section, you have something called scripts and add-ins. And scripts and add-ins are really useful if you don't feel like making a full model of something like a spur gear. So like, let's say I go down to add-ins, scripts and add-ins, and then I run this spur gear, right? You'll notice I get all of these options. I'm going to swap to metric so it's a little easier to read. So I have my diametral pitch, I have my number of teeth, and so on and so forth. We don't really care about it right now. But when I run the program and I hit OK, you're going to notice a fully modeled gear just shows up. So I did no work and now I have a full gear. This is very useful for this kind of stuff. Like if you don't feel like making these as well, this isn't the only thing that's there. Yeah, I just did that. But you can do you can do a bolt as well. I can run this and you'll notice you can get all sorts of fancy stuff for that. And then it'll show up down here. I can also do, let's see what else we have. We have, I don't know what test script does. We'll do the bottle, and then we can finish off with that. You'll notice bottle just imports straight a bottle. That's So the idea is that this is apparently imported all of the steps for the bottle as well. I didn't know that, which is kind of cool. So if you want to edit that, you can do that. But one cool thing about this too is you can make your own scripts and add-ins. This is very you'd have to be very experienced in this kind of stuff if you wanted to do it. But if you felt like being lazy and you have something that you constantly make, like let's say it's a frame of something, you could make a Python script that says, do this, 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 and then it will make that and run it, and you can just put in user parameters. But yeah, all sorts of stuff you can do to be lazy. There's plenty of other stuff as well, but those are like the main things. McMaster-Carr, GrabCAD, other CAD repositories, and scripts. So you kind of have a few different options now for stuff if you don't feel like CADing it yourself, or you feel like you're very out of your depth CADing something and you want to see how it's done. And I use all of them quite often. They're all very helpful. So yeah. It's because I'm lazy and because I know that I don't need to prove myself CADing it because I've done it. Yeah, whatever. But whatever. Joking aside, they're all very helpful, and they can aid you in speeding up CADing a lot of different things. But yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Again, everything that we pretty much just went over is in the slideshow presentation that you get. But yeah, so a reminder, do start thinking about your independent CAD projects. If you need like ideas or questions about your stuff, just come talk to any of us. We can help you out. These are just some examples of some things that people have made. So Jordan, who was just over there, he designed this thing from First Robotics. It's a little spaceship thing,
That was the deal.
He also, all of these chess pieces on this chessboard are 3D printed and CADed by him. This was a Rubik's Cube that I was working on not too long ago. It works. It's pretty cool. So yeah, just kind of like come up with your own stuff. But before that, we're going to get back to working on these practice parts. So again, you should have access already to, like through Slack, to the other PowerPoints that have these parts on them. But I'm going to put a couple of them up here depending on what you guys are interested in. But this is the first one that I think a lot of you that were here last week worked on already. This first practice part, again, it's going through these different sketch designs and using the dimensions and the shapes that we provide you to try your best to make this this shape. We also did this practice part last time. Yeah, this one was, I think, slightly harder than the last one. So if you guys want either of these two up today, we can, but I was probably planning on having you guys take a look at, like I said, this chess piece, which you should be able, based off of all these designs and this this shape, you should be able to make it in just two parts on your timeline. If you can't, that's okay, but I showed you earlier, it's literally just, you can just do a single sketch and revolve, and that's all you need. So there's this one, and then this, also the PowerPoint does go over a couple of the tools that you might be forgetting about, like let's say revolve or sweep. So this shows you revolve. Paperclip, this is another one. I think this might be slightly harder for some of you than the chess piece, but I would challenge you to try this one. So unless someone is saying they really want me to put up the first two practice parts, I was just planning on putting these up on the thing today, if that's cool. Cool. I'll put freeze you. Freeze you. Cool. Oh, is that still the wrong one? Thank you. Thank you. Should I cut the recording now? All right, yeah, cool. So for the rest of the time, we're just gonna be doing this. Yeah. Next week, boys.